In the remote wilderness of Colorado stands ADX Florence, a prison designed to hold the world's most dangerous criminals. Among its inmates is Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, once the king of a vast empire, now reduced to a life of silence and isolation. With its high-tech security and unrelenting solitude, ADX Florence is a place where escape is impossible and time moves at an excruciating crawl. This is the final chapter for El Chapo, a fall from power unlike any other.
El Chapo maintains complete control over his empire.
Born in a small mountain village in Sinaloa, Mexico, Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Lora grew up in extreme poverty. His early life was marked by hardship, selling oranges and herding goats as a child to help support his family. But his ambitions were far greater than the humble life his village offered. In his teens, Guzmán entered the trade, initially working for Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, the godfather of the Mexican cartels. Guzmán quickly proved himself invaluable, showing a remarkable ability to organize smuggling routes and outmaneuver authorities. By the late 1980s, Guzmán had risen through the ranks, ultimately founding the Sinaloa cartel. Under his leadership, the cartel became the largest and most powerful organization in the world. His empire was built on innovation, using underground tunnels to smuggle across the US border, and diversifying his operations to include methamphetamine and marijuana.
Structure is more complicated and perhaps more.
El Chapo was no ordinary lord. He was a master of logistics, operating like a Fortune 500 CEO. His control extended beyond smuggling routes to bribing politicians, police officers, and even entire government agencies. By the 2000s, he was one of the most wanted men in the world. At its height, the Sinaloa cartel smuggled approximately 500 tons of cocaine into the US annually. Forbes magazine listed Guzmán as one of the world's most powerful people, estimating his net worth at over $1 billion. But Guzmán didn't just dominate the trade. He controlled entire regions of Mexico. His cartel's influence stretched across continents, with operations in Europe, Asia, and Africa.
The prison guard claims that by the time El Chapo escaped,
Yet, with great power came great infamy. His cartel was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths, using violence as a tool of control and fear. El Chapo's legend grew not just because of his empire, but because of his ability to evade capture and escape when caught. In 1993, while El Chapo was held in Puente Grande prison, a maximum security facility in Mexico, he managed to pull off an escape so audacious it would seem like a scene straight out of a Hollywood thriller. The plan was simple, but incredibly daring. El Chapo would hide inside a laundry cart and be smuggled out of the prison. The cart was large enough to conceal him, and it would be wheeled out with the rest of the laundry, an everyday operation in the prison. The success of this escape wasn't just luck, it was a result of careful planning and the loyalty of his inner circle.
The most powerful lord ever to live, reduced to tears.
El Chapo had spent months orchestrating the heist, bribing prison guards and officials, ensuring that his plan wouldn't raise any suspicions. His connections within the prison allowed him to bypass security checks and other precautions that would have thwarted an ordinary prisoner. On the day of the escape, the laundry cart, typically used to transport dirty linens, was loaded with clean sheets and towels, and El Chapo was hidden beneath the fabric. The guards, familiar with the routine, didn't question it. The cart was wheeled through the prison gates, and the rest, as they say, is history. El Chapo was free, leaving behind a stunned prison system that could do little to stop him. Once he escaped, authorities were left scrambling, unable to find any trace of the criminal mastermind.
the criminal mastermind is locked up at Altiplano.
The escape was a humiliation for the Mexican authorities, who had prided themselves on the supposed invulnerability of their prisons. El Chapo's escape wasn't just about escaping a physical prison. It was about shattering the illusion of control. His boldness, combined with his careful planning, had turned a prison break into an international spectacle. The impact of this escape wasn't just felt in Mexico. It sent shockwaves through the global criminal world, solidifying El Chapo's reputation as a criminal genius who was nearly impossible to catch. Fast forward to 2015, and El Chapo's escape took his audacity to a whole new level. After being recaptured and placed in the high-security Altiplano prison in Mexico, El Chapo found himself once again behind bars. But anyone who underestimated him was making a fatal mistake.
Mexican authorities vow he will never escape.
This time, El Chapo would not only escape through brute force or bribes, he would build an underground tunnel, a perfect symbol of his ability to dig his way out of any situation, both literally and metaphorically. The tunnel, which stretched nearly a mile from El Chapo's cell to a house under construction in a remote area, was a feat of engineering that would make even the most seasoned escape artists envious. The tunnel was constructed with the help of his cartel associates, who were able to dig through the earth unnoticed. It wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was a fully functional escape route, complete with lighting, ventilation, and even a motorcycle to aid in the escape. The tunnel was equipped with a state-of-the-art ventilation system, ensuring that El Chapo wouldn't suffocate while making his way through the underground passage. The walls of the tunnel were reinforced with bricks and concrete, preventing collapse and ensuring that no one could easily trace the path. At the end of the tunnel, waiting for him, was a motorcycle, which would help him cover the remaining distance quickly.
Presumably used to move earth and people along its rails.
On the night of the escape, El Chapo was escorted to his cell's shower area. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but as the guards continued their rounds, unaware of what was unfolding, El Chapo slipped away into the tunnel. The escape was executed with such precision and quietness that no one realized what was happening until it was too late. El Chapo crawled through the tunnel, covering a distance of nearly a mile, with the earth pressing in on either side. Once he reached the house at the tunnel's end, he was able to escape the prison's confines undetected. The motorcycle was ready, and with one final push, El Chapo rode off into the night, disappearing without a trace. Once again, the authorities were left stunned and humiliated. The Mexican government had thought it had sealed every possible escape route, but El Chapo's ingenuity had triumphed once again. The escape was not just a physical getaway. It was a slap in the face to the Mexican authorities and their prison system. The tunnel, which had taken months to build, demonstrated that no matter how secure the facility, there was always a way out when you had the right resources and determination. The escape garnered global attention, and El Chapo's legend only grew. The sheer audacity of digging an underground tunnel to freedom added a new chapter to his already legendary criminal career. It showed that El Chapo was more than just a criminal mastermind. He was a man who could escape the very walls meant to hold him in. After his second escape, Guzmán became the target of an international manhunt involving Mexican authorities, the DEA, and Interpol. His capture in January 2016 was straight out of a Hollywood movie. Authorities tracked him down in Los Mochis, Sinaloa, after he arranged a secret meeting with actor Sean Penn for a Rolling Stone article. The meeting, intended to showcase El Chapo's story, ultimately exposed his location. A violent raid ensued, with Guzmán finally apprehended after a This time, Mexican authorities were unwilling to take any risks. In 2017, Guzmán was extradited to the United States to face trial. El Chapo's trial in Brooklyn, New York was one of the most publicized legal proceedings in U.S. history. Over 56 witnesses, including former cartel members, testified against him. The trial revealed chilling details about Guzmán's operations, including bribes to Mexican officials, drug smuggling techniques, and acts of violence ordered against rivals.
Eyewitness News has learned that a man with ties to El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel was found down Thanksgiving morning.
In 2019, he was convicted on all charges, including drug, money laundering. His sentence? Life imprisonment plus 30 years. But the question remained, where could a man as dangerous and resourceful as El Chapo be securely held? Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán's transfer to the Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence, in Colorado marked the ultimate end to a life of power, wealth, and daring escapes. Dubbed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, this supermax prison is the last destination for the world's most dangerous criminals. Designed to eliminate any chance of escape and ensure total control, ADX Florence is not just a prison. It's a fortress built to strip its inmates of autonomy and hope. Located in the remote wilderness of Colorado, ADX Florence's isolation begins long before its walls come into view. Surrounded by rugged terrain and miles from any populated area, the prison uses its natural surroundings as an additional layer of security. Even if someone were to break free, they would face harsh, unforgiving landscape with no chance of finding help or shelter. Inside the prison, the architecture itself is a testament to security. Razor wire fences, motion sensors, Guard towers and advanced surveillance systems make ADX Florence virtually impenetrable. Inmates are confined to small, 7 by 12 foot concrete cells.
The FBI was able to identify and turn Guzmán's personal IT man.
Each designed with reinforced materials to prevent tampering or weaponization. A narrow, slit-like window allows only a glimpse of the outdoors, carefully positioned to deny prisoners any sense of location. For El Chapo, whose life once revolved around global cartels and unimaginable wealth, the transition to life at ADX Florence has been a profound fall from grace. His days are spent in near total isolation, with a barren concrete cell equipped with only a bed, toilet, and fixed desk. Meals are delivered through a slot in the door, and his only time outside the cell, 1 hour per day, is spent alone in a small outdoor cage, enclosed by high walls.
Will bring a sentence of life without the possibility of parole.
Human interaction is minimal, limited to brief exchanges with guards or monitored meetings with legal counsel. There is no communal activity, no shared meals, and no connection with other inmates. For a man accustomed to controlling armies of cartel operatives, this relentless solitude is a punishment in itself. El Chapo resides in Corridor 13, the most secure section of ADX Florence. This wing houses the prison's highest-risk inmates, individuals deemed too dangerous to be anywhere else. The cells here are soundproof, ensuring complete isolation, while every movement of the inmates is monitored through constant surveillance. Activities such as showers and exercise are heavily restricted, requiring strict protocols and multiple layers of security. Even during his brief time in the outdoor cage, El Chapo remains under 24/7 watch, ensuring he has no chance to communicate with others or plot an escape. While ADX Florence is a masterpiece of physical security, its psychological impact is equally profound. Prolonged solitary confinement has been shown to cause severe mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, paranoia, and hallucinations. For inmates like El Chapo, who thrived in chaotic environments of power and control, the endless monotony and isolation can be crushing. The lack of human interaction and sensory stimulation breaks down the mental resilience of even the most hardened individuals.
Quien estaba ubicado en el área de tratamientos especiales, pasillo número 2.
Experts have criticized such extreme conditions as inhumane, arguing that they go beyond punishment and venture into psychological torture. For El Chapo, the silence and stillness are a stark contrast to the life of constant action and influence he once knew. What truly sets ADX Florence apart is its cutting-edge technology, which ensures that every corner of the facility is monitored. High-resolution cameras, motion detectors, and biometric systems create a network of surveillance with no blind spots. Guards are extensively trained to handle high-risk prisoners.
It's been an operation years in the making, involving over 22 agencies and spanning 2 countries.
And every protocol is executed with precision. The prison operates under a philosophy of zero tolerance for risk, leaving no room for even the smallest oversight. Escape is not just unlikely, it's functionally impossible. ADX Florence has never recorded a successful breakout, cementing its reputation as the most secure prison on the planet. For Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, ADX Florence represents the end of his reign as one of the world's most infamous criminals. Known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, ADX Florence is a fortress of isolation, designed for complete control and inescapable security. Here, El Chapo's days are stripped of meaning beyond basic survival. His 7 by 12 foot concrete cell offers no respite, with only a small slit of a window allowing him a limited view of the sky. The man who once orchestrated global shipments and amassed billions in wealth now lives in a world devoid of luxury or power. The cell that confines him is furnished with only the bare essentials: a steel bed bolted to the floor, a desk, a stool, and a stainless steel toilet sink combination. Even these items are carefully designed to prevent self-harm or weaponization. El Chapo's daily routine revolves around absolute monotony. Meals are slid through a slot in the door, and his only human interaction comes from guards or legal visits, both heavily monitored. Exercise, if granted, is limited to 1 hour in a small concrete yard known as a dog run, where he paces under the watchful eye of guards and cameras. Communication with the outside world is virtually non-existent, with no physical contact allowed, even during visits. The harsh conditions of ADX Florence have ignited ongoing debate about whether such measures are justifiable for even the most dangerous criminals. On one side, advocates assert that the severity of crimes committed by inmates like El Chapo, mass murders, cartel violence, and widespread trafficking demands the most stringent form of punishment. They see ADX Florence as a symbol of justice, a place where those who have caused untold suffering are stripped of the power and influence they once yielded. Critics, however, argue that prolonged solitary confinement amounts to psychological torture. Numerous studies have documented the devastating mental health effects of such isolation, including hallucinations, paranoia, depression, and an increased risk of For inmates like El Chapo, who have lived lives of constant activity and high stakes, the transition to unbroken silence and confinement can be crushing. Organizations like Amnesty International have condemned the use of long-term solitary confinement, calling it inhumane and a violation of basic human rights.
As a sort of outlaw folk hero whose life as a powerful lord.
The ethical dilemma raises a profound question. Should justice for crimes as egregious as El Chapo's include measures that some argue verge on cruelty? Or is this level of punishment necessary to protect society from individuals deemed irredeemable? This notorious leader of the Sinaloa cartel maintained his grip on power through a complex combination of bribes, violence, and systemic corruption, ensuring that his cartel dominated the trade for decades. His strategies were multi-layered, ensuring loyalty, eliminating threats, and establishing widespread control across various institutions. One of El Chapo's most effective tools for maintaining power was his ability to offer lucrative bribes. These bribes were aimed not just at his inner circle, but also at government officials, law enforcement officers, military personnel, and even judges. The Sinaloa cartel, under his leadership, had an extensive network of paid informants and agents working within these institutions. El Chapo's cartel would often pay off local and federal police officers to ensure safe passage for their shipments of drugs and to warn them of any impending law enforcement operations.
Highly secure ADX Florence in the US, and the feds still fear that the Mexican kingpin is gonna make a run for freedom soon.
In addition to bribing law enforcement, he also paid off customs agents, ensuring that the drugs being smuggled into the US were not seized during routine inspections. The level of corruption within the Mexican government was such that El Chapo was able to exploit the system to the fullest, making arrests of cartel members or seizures of drugs nearly impossible for years. His capacity to establish a financial web of bribery also extended to business leaders, local politicians, and even journalists, all of whom were willing to turn a blind eye to his cartel's activities in exchange for money or favors. This vast network of influence enabled him to stay ahead of law enforcement efforts and manage his operations with remarkable efficiency. Violence was a cornerstone of El Chapo's leadership style. While many kingpins rely on intimidation and fear, El Chapo took it to an extreme level, ensuring that not only was his cartel feared,
security cameras captured his every movement in the maximum security prison, but guards missed a tiny movement in the shower area.
But any competitors or threats to his power were swiftly dealt with. The violence employed by El Chapo wasn't just confined to his enemies. It was also a tool to maintain discipline within his own ranks. Dissent within the cartel was not tolerated, and disloyalty was met with extreme violence. El Chapo used brutal tactics such as beheadings, torture, and public executions to send a message to anyone thinking of betraying him or attempting to break away from the Sinaloa cartel. The killings were often carried out in a way that maximized their shock value, such as hanging bodies in public spaces or dumping them with messages implicating rival cartels or traitors within his own organization. These gruesome displays not only sent a chilling warning to potential enemies, but also reminded cartel members of the fate awaiting those who chose to rebel. Additionally, El Chapo's cartel was known for its sophisticated hitmen, often referred to as sicarios. These men were loyal to him, and their ruthlessness ensured that the cartel's operations remained intact. In some cases, sicarios were tasked with eliminating informants, rival gang members, or anyone posing a threat to El Chapo's reign. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of El Chapo's power was his ability to manipulate the Mexican political and legal system. Corruption, at every level, ensured that El Chapo could operate with impunity. He was able to negotiate deals with police officers to bypass security checks, bribe judges to drop charges against cartel members, and gain favorable verdicts when his associates were arrested. His cartel had influence in nearly every state in Mexico, and El Chapo used this influence to recruit corrupt officials who worked in his favor. One of the most striking examples of this was the 2015 escape from Altiplano, a high-security Mexican prison, which was facilitated by bribing prison officials to help him escape. The incident showcased the extent of El Chapo's reach within Mexico's criminal justice system. The cartel's power was further solidified through alliances with other criminal organizations, politicians, and businessmen, which made it impossible for law enforcement agencies to dismantle the cartel's operations without facing significant resistance. Additionally, by controlling key ports, highways, and even airstrips, El Chapo's cartel maintained a significant advantage in the smuggling trade. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán's story is as much a cautionary tale as it is a reflection on the cost of unchecked power. Rising from poverty in the mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico, he built a empire that supplied narcotics across continents, corrupt governments, and unleashed waves of violence. His daring escapes from maximum security prisons in Mexico earned him a near-mythical status. But his capture and extradition to the United States in 2017 marked the fall of a man once considered untouchable. While his empire no longer dominates headlines, the ripple effects of his actions continue to shape the global war on The Sinaloa cartel remains active, even without its infamous leader, underscoring the systemic challenges in dismantling such vast criminal enterprises. El Chapo's imprisonment at ADX Florence also serves as a chilling reminder of the lengths modern justice systems will go to contain the world's most dangerous criminals. For him, the fortress of isolation is an inescapable end, one where even his legacy of fear and power holds no sway. As El Chapo faces the rest of his life in near total isolation, the question remains, does his punishment serve justice, or does it cross the line into cruelty? For some, ADX Florence is the ultimate symbol of retribution, where the world's most notorious criminals are finally silenced. For others, it represents a troubling breach of human rights, raising questions about the moral boundaries of justice systems. The debate continues as El Chapo's days stretch endlessly into the confines of his cell. What do you think? Does ADX Florence deliver justice or something darker? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.